If you're thinking about taking a cruise, but you're just overwhelmed and don't know where to start, then this video is for you. I'm setting up a series of 6 mini videos to help the inexperienced cruiser look like a pro. I'm Charlene at islandjumper.travel, and in this video, we're going to talk about how to choose a ship, how to choose a cruise line, how to pick an itinerary, and how to pick a room. So this is all you need to know to get started to get your cruise booked. First off, when you're cruising, think about what's most important to you. Is it sticking with a cruise line that you already are with, or going on a cruise line that maybe you have friends that you want to cruise with? Are you just really impressed by some of the ships you've seen, like the Carnival's Mardi Gras, or the one of the Oasis class ships? They're just ginormous, and you want to get on that ship. Or maybe you're just really interested in going to particular islands, and so that would be your focus. So first decide kind of where your priority. So each cruise line kind of has a different vibe, and of course Disney, you would expect to be really family friendly, and all of their entertainment is very child appropriate, and that cruise is going to be really focused on the children and really how to give them an amazing magical experience. Carnival and Royal Caribbean are also very family friendly. They have really elaborate, really nice places for the kids to go when they go off on their own if they want to. There's a lot of multi-generational kind of things to do on the Royal Caribbean and Carnival ships. So these are all three very family focused. Now the Disney ship is more of a premium ship, so it's going to cost a good amount more than say some of the other ships. But for Carnival and Royal Caribbean, they're a little bit easier on the budget, but you can layer in a bunch of packages and things that can make them pretty close to competitive priced, price-wise. So bottom line, like by the time you get done adding maybe packages, drink packages, and dining packages, and we'll talk about that in another video. So, but just know those are very family focused, really good on the budget, good for families. But I don't have children, and my husband and I have spent, I think, over 91 nights at sea for Royal Caribbean alone. So it's still a very good offering for you if you don't necessarily want to take your kids with you. Norwegian, or we often call them NCL, they are geared to a slightly younger crowd, and some families or no families, either one can go on that one. It's kind of a mix as well. It's a little bit more of a premium. It's not quite a full-fledged premium, but it's a little bit more than the lower priced cruises. And they have usually a lot of specialty dining that you do have to pay an upcharge for, but it's going to be a little bit more casual, a little more freestyle, because freestyle is like their whole thing. You know, you can kind of go to dinner when you want. They're kind of I think the cruise line that started that concept, kind of doing what you want when you want to do it. So they're a lot more laid back with the way that the ship is ran, and the other ships can be a little bit more structured. Like you pick a dining time, like you pick 6 or like 8 o'clock dining time and that sort of thing for the main dining room. But Norwegian has like a smaller main dining room and has a bunch more specialty restaurants, some of which you have to pay for and some of which are just included in the charge. Celebrity and Princess are kind of in the premium lines. They include a lot of things in their base price. Usually they include the gratuities, and they include like a basic drink package, and sometimes they include some specialty dining. There's like different kind of packages that you can go, but they tend to include a little bit more in the base package. And that's another thing too. I had a client that was new to cruising, and I was trying to kind of narrow down what she might like, and I picked out 4 different cruise lines, 4 different ranges, and by the time I layered everything in to make them all kind of equivalent, so basically made them equivalent to like an all-inclusive, they were a lot closer in price than what I realized. So be really aware of all the different things that you might do, and as you go through this series, I'll kind of help you think through. I'll spend a whole video on drink packages and dining packages and kind of like what the deal is with that and how it makes sense to pick those for you. But just know that the Celebrity and Princess are a little bit more I wouldn't call them luxury lines necessarily. Like the Seabourn and the Oceana, those are like full-fledged luxury lines, but they are more of a premium offering. I think Princess is a little bit formal, a little bit more formal. Of course, they'll have their more casual nights and stuff too, but I think it tends to be a little bit more geared toward traditional cruising. And what people really like about Princess is once you've been on one ship, you kind of feel very familiar any other ship you get on. They design them all very similar, no matter how big they are, and that's kind of nice, to no matter if you're getting on a big ship or a small ship, you just feel comfortable at home. And Princess has really done a great job with that. Princess is also really into technology. They were developing this badge technology so that you do a wearable, like you could wear a necklace or a wrist badge, and it would pay for your drink, get you into your room, all that kind of stuff. So they were really kind of at the forefront of that, and they have spent a lot of work getting their app really robust, and it is something that you use. And we'll talk about what you need to do to fill out paperwork to get on the cruise when you get a little closer to it, and we'll talk about that in one of the videos too that are coming up. So I would say they're a little bit more formal. Celebrity, I think, is a little bit more modern, I think, is really what I would call them. They're very elegant. It's a very modern, elegant ship. Won't be quite as formal and old school cruising as maybe the Princess ship is. Really great offerings. And same thing with Holland. That's also kind of in that same premium line, and people really enjoy. It's a little bit more of a traditional older crowd on the Holland cruises. And then of course there's Virgin Voyages, and they're trying to break the paradigm of cruising in general. They're kind of like not your grandma's cruise line, unless of course your grandma was a groupie, and if so, she'll love this cruise line. It's very rock and roll, because you would expect that from Richard Branson. They've included a lot of things in their base price, like Wi-Fi. There's no extra gratuities. All their fitness group classes are included. They never had a buffet. That was never the concept they were going to have. They were having more of a food hall. So you go out to individual stations and kind of pick out what you want to eat. And then they also have restaurant dining, but there's no main dining room. So you just go make your reservations or turn up and see if you can get a spot. There's no specialty dining upcharge. The only thing they really charge up for, there's a food lab, and that costs extra because it's kind of like a specialty food experience, and then they handle their drinks totally differently. Like they do if you pay ahead of time, like a $300 bar tab, they'll add $50 to it, and only one person needs to buy that. Like one person could just buy that $300, and then they could buy drinks for whoever they wanted to. And it is an 18 and over ship, and they prefer, really, if you're over 21, the 18 to 20 need to be with a 21-year-old. So it's an adult ship, and it's going to a little bit more adult entertainment, but I think it should be a lot different. We're scheduled to be on one at the end of the year, so I'm definitely going to give some videos after that, but it should move the paradigm a little bit for the cruising industry. So there's also excursion kind of cruises, especially made for like the Galapagos, and there's Antarctica cruises. A lot of those include airfare because they know you're coming from some faraway place. I like to say if you've been on a bad cruise, you were just not on the right cruise line, because there's such different personalities in the cruise lines. I think that there's something for everyone, unless of course you just hate the water, or even if you tend to get seasick. A lot of times if you get the patch and get on a bigger ship and position yourself on the ship in the most optimal spot, a lot of times you can not be bothered with seasickness unless motion sickness is like a real problem for you. So I just think that there's a cruise for everybody. You just haven't been on the right one yet if you don't like cruises. Ship size. So the ship size can be drastic. So the Mardi Gras by Carnival, they're going to be like, I think they're maybe going to be the 6th largest ship, passenger ship. The Oasis class ships by Royal Caribbean, they take the top 5 spots, I think, or top 4 spots. And all of the Oasis class ships are very large. They're just really floating resorts. There's a lot of different things to do, a lot of different things to eat. because they're bigger though, that does limit on the itineraries they can go to. And I did make a video about the Oasis class ships and kind of like the good side and the bad side of them. So you can watch that if you're interested. And there's also really small ships too. So like out of Tampa, the ships can only be so big that they can get under the bridge. And so those are considerably smaller ships than like the really big class ships. So and those can be very intimate, very fun. You get to know other cruisers, you can get to know the people that serve you, and it's kind of a nice, more intimate experience, as opposed to like the bigger ships have a lot more offerings, like maybe they have slides and lots of things to do, but you are probably never going to run into the same people twice if they're not in a group that you came with. And it can feel very big. If you tend to get overwhelmed in big crowds, then a smaller ship is probably more your speed than on one of the larger ships. But there's a grand difference in size of ships that you can take, and you can kind of research like what ships have that might appeal to you. Or you can pick an itinerary if you want to focus on a particular island that you might want to visit. I would pick like maybe one or two that you're really interested in and go looking for what cruise ship might be going to those. Some of the really more exotic, interesting islands that I've been on, like Dominica and even St. Croix, was on a much smaller ship. The big ships, again, kind of are limited to the cruise ports they go to, although the ports they do go to are very large and there's lots of different things to do. So it really kind of depends on what you're going for. So kind of like think about itinerary, what's an island you'd like to go to, and then kind of research where to go to it. Also stuff like Bermuda, they only sell to Bermuda certain times of the year. And then there's the departure ports. So Florida has the most. They've got Port Canaveral, Port Everglade, which is in Fort Lauderdale. There's Miami. Then, of course, there's Tampa. You could also sail out of Jacksonville, but right now only Carnival has an offering there. Same thing, there's a lot of times Mobile, Alabama will have a ship, and Carnival usually covers that. Charleston, South Carolina has a ship, and Carnival, I think maybe Princess sometimes goes there too. Then you can kind of go further up the coast. There's Norfolk, Virginia, which sometimes certain times a year will have a ship that sails out of there. Then there's a number of ships that sail out of like Boston or New Jersey or New York, and pretty much everybody will sail out of somewhere up that area. And then there's like Galveston has a good offering. New Orleans has a port, and a lot of the ships will have an offering out of there. And then of course West Coast will also have a number of ships that sail out of there. So maybe you just want to pick the port that's closest to you. And one of the things that like Carnival brags about is pretty much anybody in America can drive to one of their ports, which is so smart. And it does give you an opportunity to go on a cruise for a lot less. When I lived in Florida, I was so spoiled that we could drive to everything in it. I never even had to think about the number of bags I was taking, or having to pay airfare to get to the ports. We could just go. You just drive there and go. The port the furthest away I ever lived from a port was maybe 6.5 hours, and that's when we lived in Jacksonville, and we would maybe drive to Miami. So it was always really easy to get to the ports. I know that I have to fly. I really have a much more appreciation for the fact that you always have to budget the airfare. You have to really be mindful of your packing. Luggage has to be like about 50 pounds or less. Some airlines are kind of moving that down to 45 or 40, depending on what you fly. So another thing to be mindful is where is the port that you might want to sail from. And also you can like fly to other places, like you can fly to Puerto Rico. There's some really great cruises that you can get out of there. And going to Puerto Rico is a really good way. It puts you further south, so you can still take a shorter cruise, like maybe a 7-night cruise, and really get to some really great islands like Grenada and Barbados, and like get really far down south, where if you were taking a ship out of Miami, you need a couple more days to get further down south to enjoy those islands. So that may be something you should consider as well. And then lastly is cabin size. So cabins on ships are not very large, and you've got to be really mindful and organized if you want to be happy with the smaller cabins. And I will do a video about some of the tips and tricks that experienced cruisers have to kind of keep their cabin organized and things that they tend to take along. But there's a number of different kinds of cabins. So there's an inside cabin, and what that means is it is a cabin without windows. And so it can be very, very dark because the only light coming in is like the light from the hallways, unless you have the light on in the room. You will never get better sleep than you will in a inner cabin room, because it's just so super dark and you just sleep in. And I have friends that they only get inside cabins because they just don't spend that much time in the cabin. It's called an ocean view, but it won't have the word balcony or veranda. So it's just like a window or a port that you can see the ocean, and those are nice too. I've been in those, and you do have, like natural light that comes in, and it can be really fun to be. A lot of times, sometimes those are lower, and those, it's kind of fun to be kind of like lower near the water, and so those can be a little bit more expensive. And then there's usually balcony rooms. There can be all kinds of different levels of balconies. We will opt for a balcony, especially if we're not going with friends, if it's just the two of us going, because we just like to, we'll order room service first thing in the morning, so we'll sit out and just watch the ocean and have a piece of toast or a pastry and some coffee, and that's just like gold to us. And then you can go even higher. There are junior suites, and depending on the cruise line, will depend on the privileges that come with your junior suite. Some cruise lines, the junior suite is really just like a really big balcony room, but they just charge a little more for it, and they don't get most of the privileges. But suites tend to get a different set of privileges. They usually have a place that they eat that does not include everyone else. They can eat at a restaurant that's just for suites. They usually have some areas like a concierge area, or like an area that they hang out, and they may have like little hors d'oeuvres there, maybe have a little place where they can get coffee, that sort of thing. It's kind of like if you join a loyalty program, you'll get a similar thing. Once you get to certain levels of a loyalty program, you'll have a little area, a little club area that you can go in, and they'll have little offerings. Like I say, a lot of times it's hors d'oeuvres. Sometimes there's a happy hour where you get free drinks, and sometimes they just have a espresso machine or a coffee machine there kind of for you. It'll be less people, and a room full of people that are all cruisers, and sometimes it's fun to be around everybody who just really likes cruising, especially after we get back on the high seas. And then they're just like really expensive suites with different rooms or different levels, and really fun stuff like slides for the kids, and multiple bathrooms and that sort of thing. So you can really live large on the cruise ships. Like Virgin Voyages has like the rock star, and they like come in and do your hair, and they the liquor that's stocked like for the first round, that's part of the expense, and it's just got a lot of really crazy extra things like that. But the suites always come with kind of like some stuff, and then a lot of them have suites around either the spa area or just kind of around like healthy living in general. So a lot of times suites are kind of built around that, and they'll have kind of enclosed areas that are just for the people that have the suites. But you don't need to have a suite to have a great time, trust me. So I guess to kind of recap, figure out what your priority is. Are you more concerned about going to a particular island? Are you more about like, is a price point really important? So you want to stick with like maybe a more economical cruise line? Do you want to get on a cruise line because you've just seen lots of commercials and it's the life you want to live, so you want to give it a try? Are you wanting to try out features of a ship because you've seen it on TV, because it's advertised a lot, it's got a lot of cool features, you want to get on that ship? So figure out what your priority is, and then start kind of pick the number one priority, and then start looking for the other things that are important to you, and like kind of the vibe and the feel. Are you more family focused? Are you more like freestyle? Are you more like rock and roll? Are you more like elegant? but not too stuffy or elegant, and maybe a little bit more formal. You know, pick out the thing that's for you, and also work with your travel agent, because it's really fun to try to figure out, especially for brand new cruises, try to figure out like what they would like the best, and then you can always try more. You know, that's the fun of it too, right? If you don't like this cruise, try another cruise and see if you like it any better. So that's all I have for this particular video. So until next time, live your truth and live well.